A year ago nobody would believe this, but Banner of War Titan is now actually a bit underrated, with Storm's Keep or Consecration Spam taking the top 2 meta spots. But Banner of War is just as good as it's ever been,
Man, I gotta tell you, I love that Banner of War aspect.
and sits alongside these two builds as the options you can take into any content, even the hardest endgame options, and come out on top. In fact, in some ways it is better now than it has been in previous seasons. The build I will show in this video has all the high damage melee options you would expect, but it is a lot more well rounded than previous iterations, featuring a lot more weapon utility and honestly ridiculous survivability. But why would I mention this build now? These are the points I will cover throughout the video. Survivability has skyrocketed, on top of the easy access to woven mail through Into the Fray, overshield providing weapons have now bloomed, and there's a mod which provides resist times 2 for simply existing. Glaives have also got a huge buff, and are buffed more so while using Banner of War. These now make a compelling alternative to 1-2 punch shotguns, and can offer much more. And while writing the script for this video, the artifact column for next season was dropped, and it could not have been any better for this build. All 5 of these mods can be used to great effect here. Some are obvious in the 2 strand based options via Weave and to Shreds, but the rocket option could also work incredibly, and this will make a lot more sense later in. Anyway, back to the main benefits of this build. At its heart, this is a support kind of build. You get a bunch of great effects applied to yourself, but a lot of these effects can be shared to your team too. And these huge melee boosts will synergize with a lot of the current good meta builds. Lightning Surge Warlocks will be hitting much harder. Horde Shuttle has revolutionized unraveling targets. Unraveling is incredibly easy with grapple melees, soon to be to shreds, and any strand weapons with unraveling rounds. Enough so that one of the fragments I use is now Thread of Evolution, so that threadlings generated by this hit so much harder. And on strand weapons, Barrow Dyad is just incredible. And being on Titan, Peacekeepers are an option too. These can provide an alternative to Synthoceps if you want to be even more weapon focused. Survivability is one of the most important criteria when running a build, which really wants you to get aggressive, and I think Banner of War Titan does this the best. At base you do have a 45% damage resist provided from woven mail, which you can maintain and share easily with the aspect Into the Fray. And on the other side, reducing outgoing enemy damage is also effectively damage resistance. Power melee attacks, which are much more frequent with a secondary effect from Into the Fray, apply Sever on hit, and this reduces outgoing enemy damage by 40%, or 52% using the artifact mod Disruptor Spike. And of course Banner of War heals you and nearby allies over time, more frequently as you build up stacks, building up to a 20-second heal every second. But these are just the base survivability options, ones which have been around since Banner of War's introduction, although Sever being a little bit more effective this season, though the real seasonal benefits come from another mod which is just perfect for this build. Heavy Ordnance Regeneration is the fit you want for Banner of War. This is the main reason I wanted to run a build like this in the first place, and I think people don't quite understand just how insane this is. The activation requirements is 7 hits with an LMG, which is very easy, or 2 hits with a rocket. But rockets have impact and detonation damage, so this can be done with a single rocket, even on a single target. So that infinite rocket mod coming up is already looking a lot more juicy. And what do you get from this simple activation? Well, it's a casual 85% regeneration speed in both grenades and melees for 9.5 seconds, meaning much more frenzied blade swipes and grapple melees, which are both heavy hitters. Alongside that, for an even longer duration of 15.5 seconds, you will be granted a stacking 25% damage resist. This, with Woven Mail and Banner of War healing you are starting to become an unstoppable force. When Act 3 drops, Perpetual Destruction will allow for rockets to refund ammo on rapid final blows, so this is another thing which is making this mod look even stronger. The Vanguard rocket launcher Cyanosia is both strand, has great perk options, and is a great frame for blast radius and overall damage, so I do recommend stocking up on a few of these ahead of time. And the final part for survivability, consider repulsive race void weapons. Since you have healing over time and damage resistance, avoid overshield will pair perfectly. While one is active, it does give you time for your healing effects to fully replenish your base health, and it gives an extra layer of protection. You don't even really need destabilizing rounds this season, as you can just use Volatile Marksman instead, to meet that void debuff criteria. but a void weapon with a combo of both these perks will work fine too, which, let's be honest, is pretty much all of them. So with that, what weapons should you be using? There's a few categories I can kind of put these into, and recommend a few within them which will be interchangeable options, but they do all synergise perfectly in their own ways. So first up we'll cover those void weapons. There's both special and primary options here, but the idea is the same regardless. Get as much volatility going as possible to enable Repulsor Brace, as well as leading to weaken effects via Maligned Harvest. Lotus Eater, the obvious candidate. Repulsor Brace destabilizing rounds, and it also has anti-barrier sidearm. This would be my number one choice, especially if using a primary ammo strand weapon. The other special ammo options I would take is Choir of One. This does lose access to Repulsor Brace, but it does just about everything else really well. Ammo efficiency, it's really good while ADSing, or burst while hipfire is also a great option. Primary options look for high RPM. This activates Volatile Marksman and Maligned Harvest much easier. If you want specifics, it's a combination of high RPM and a lower mag size to be ideal. So Void SMGs such as Recluse or even the Manticore. Rapid Void autos such as Reckless Oracles or Riposte are also ideal. These two autos are coming from the two pits of hell, unfortunately, either Garden of Salvation or Competitive Playlist. Take your pick of which one sounds better of those. Other archetypes such as hand cannons and pulse rifles can work too. I know Word of Crota and Jox's Longsword have been quite popular this season, but for me these do feel clunky compared to the previous options, again because of that RPM difference. And alongside that void weapon, the kinetic and heavy slot use Strand. This is for that easy access to unravelling rounds, which leads to threatling generation, and the unravelling projectiles themselves will also be doing increased damage in Act 3, via the To Shreds boost if you want to take that mod. The best Strand primary right now is, without a doubt, the Path of Ambition variant of Barrow Dyad. With Banner of War Titan, Synthocept has always been a no-brainer, but Barrow Dyad is the only thing which has made me think maybe actually Peacekeepers might be the way to go instead. Just to make this weapon even better. Essentially how it works is you build up charges of Blight by maintaining damage on a single target, but hits on any target will build up stacks, albeit a bit slower. And on the next manual reload, these Blight rounds will be fired alongside your first few shots. The damage from these is ridiculous. I have a whole video on this weapon here, and you would have seen it used in a few of the gameplay clips so far too. Essentially it's a primary weapon which can one-mag champions in GMs. It can provide sustainable boss DPS alone, and will be getting better as the season progresses, with One Throw and Target Lock both being catalysts currently not available, but will be following Act 3's release. There is also the legendary version of Barrow Dyad, if you want to use an exotic somewhere else. Mirror Imago can sneak in Blight rounds too, this time by slotting in the weapon mod Power of Ambition. This functions differently to Barrow though. For this weapon it's damage over time. Yeah, this is Osteo's trigger but legendary. And it is as good as it sounds. The Blight ticks here are also boosted, plus charge with damage boost provided by Peacekeepers. For the perks, look for Overflow or Subsistence paired with Target Lock or Sword Logic. If you're using a Void primary weapon, the Call is still a fantastic choice. It's a bit of an old reliable at this point, and the only good Strand weapon which is capable of slotting in anti-barrier mod capabilities, though Unravelling rounds can also do this. The final Strand kinetic slot weapon I want to give attention to is Refusal of the Call. If using this it's back to Synthocepts, as these also boost glaive melee damage by 100%. And Banner of War will provide an additional 12.5% glaive melee damage too. If Synthocepts are not active at any point, this benefit will be pushed up to 25%. Cool thing about this glaive, other than it being the only Strand option, is it too can use Power of Ambition, allowing it to spread that Blight poison. It's also got Slice as an option to sever targets, or Discord which can return projectile ammo on final blows. Column 4 close to melee is great because it's a 30% bonus melee damage following a projectile final blow, but Disruption breaks here too. This one gives a 50% kinetic bonus upon breaking a target's shield, but what's great is the glaive's melee is kinetic, and as such receives this huge buff. Final Warning's also here too, I guess. This one may be more so for upcoming episodes where Unravelling Orbs is no longer an option. Also you could opt for a 1-2 punch shotgun in either of these slots. Swordbreaker is a Strand weapon with it, while Basso Ostinato and a Sudden Death are void weapons with it. These are a great natural pairing with high damage melees and grapples, but found them a lot less required than they used to be. I'm cutting in after I've done the script here. There's also the Navigator. I completely forgot about this. But you can use the Navigator. You could even use like the Trace Rifle mods of this if you want to boost its damage up. But realistically, this thing's more here just so you can give yourself and allies woven mail. You can also make the grapple point to have infinite grapple melees, and that's pretty good. I'm sure you've seen this in the past where you can just burst down bosses instantly. It's not that strong anymore, but it is still a pretty good option. Heavy ammo options, thankfully the considerations are much more straightforward. We're going with either rockets or LMGs to enable heavy ordnance regeneration. And with the new mods revealed, I'm leaning a bit more towards rockets. This one is for sure Cyanosia. It blows the other Strand rocket options out of the water. If using it as an ad clear rocket, which will be a thing, trust me, doubters of this will be in shambles. Everyone's going to be doing this. You can use perks which increase blast radius, such as explosive light or chain reaction. But let's be real, ads will die to a rocket regardless, and you only really need one direct impact for heavy ordnance, so I'd build more towards boss DPS, which means you can drop that chain reaction and keep explosive light alongside Envious Arsenal. But as a Vanguard rocket, there's a whole lot of perks, so it might be more of a case of just take what you get. To avoid sitting here listing off 10 plus viable perks, here's all the options, and I've circled those which might be worth keeping. Strand LMGs is also an easy choice. Pro Memoria is the best frame, has the best perk combinations, and the best origin trait of all available options, and it's craftable. So if you have a patterns, make use of Hatchling in column 3, since Thread of Evolution will make this even better, or Demolitionist as an alternative option if you're boring. Column 4, Frenzy is perfect. A passive damage boost and maxes out both handling and reload regardless of their base stats, so you're getting a lot of value here. So far then, weapons I've covered, survivability options too, and the aspects you'll be using too. I've touched on exotics and fragments a little bit, so to give those more clarity, here's the things you should be considering. If you're not using an SMG, always Synthoceps. 165% melee damage and 50% super damage when surrounded is a no-brainer. The Super Blade Fury is a roaming super, so charges very quickly. Pretty much just pop this on cooldown. Despite being a roaming option, it also does have pretty good boss damage too if Synthoceps is enabled. If you are using an SMG, Peacekeepers is a consideration. I'm not going to lie and say these are better than Synthoceps because they aren't. But after years of exclusively Synthoceps, what I will say is these are a viable, fresh alternative. Remember that Banner of War's melee boosts are more potent if you're not using Synthoceps, so you're not losing out completely on boost and melee damage. What these do enable is making Barrow Dyad an absolute machine. You won't even need other weapons, when just this alone can chunk bosses and champions, spread and ravel with ease, and the super gains you get for just using it are ridiculous. For fragments, Banner of War has had no change here in the longest time, but because of Horde Shuttle, I am now going to use Thread of Evolution for more potent threadlings. The other three options are Thread of Ascent for instant reload on grapples, especially useful for LMGs or rockets, Thread of Generation for decreased grapple cooldowns, and Thread of Warding for woven mail on all pickup. This last one might seem a bit odd when there's already into the fray, but both of these will only end up increasing the uptime you have on woven mail. If one isn't currently active, you can rely on the other kind of thing. Plus for other Strand fragments, there's nothing really standing out to me. Most importantly though, how should you play this build? Banner of War does a lot for you, however it's about supporting the team. This is something which is very often overlooked, but the Banner of War Strand Titan is really secretly a support setup. Into the Fray gives teammates restoration and woven mail too, and you share the restoration from the banner itself. The banner melee boosting effect is another part which is shared. So you know there's Consecration Titans and those Warlocks on Lightning Surge pretending to be Consecration Titans? They are now 40% more effective when nearby. You could even have the whole team running glaives and benefit from the boost provided here too. You could even do something like one of each class exotic glaive, or whatever you want. For solely your own gameplay, be very plentiful with your melee and grenade abilities. Into the Fray provides a 300% base melee regenerate, and Heavy Ordnance provides an 85% on top of this, and the same to grenades. Thread of Generation also helps in bringing back grapples incredibly quickly when you deal damage. Blade Fury is exactly the same, just pop this off cooldown. It also fully refunds melees and grenade charges after its use too. To make the most out of Blade Fury, follow this rotation. Start with 2 light attacks and then into a repeated cycle of this, 1 heavy into 3 lights. Also remember to disengage early with the last bit of super energy if using it against the boss. It is very easy to get a little bit too brave sometimes and get stumped Narnia as soon as the super expires. But realistically, outside of maybe GMs, the amount of damage resist you have, you will probably be fine. And weapons are now a much bigger part of this build as they enable unravel and survivability almost instantly and incredibly easily. But once you have all that up and running, abilities are just back on the menu to be used safely and effectively. And throughout this video, I recognise that artifact mods have played quite a huge part, but Banner of War will still be fantastic without them, but it's so much better with. And it's also likely the season we have now is going to be quite a long one, so having the right setup of these mods will be critical for months to come. Here is the exact setups you should be running. I've also included an option of what you should have when the Act 3 mods drop too, with a rocket and the LMG calibration. Finally, armor mods I will show on screen now too. A full dim link will be provided in the description both for the Synthoceps and Peacekeepers alternatives of this build. If you have made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment just saying the Banner of War aspect, and also join up to my community Discord, also linked in the description. Thank you for watching.